Anderson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen did ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
Up, LAFB fans, you are listening to the Bruin Bible right now, but we want to bring to you our sponsor for the show. It's Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon finals. I know our guy Madman will be all over that. The big tennis fan of the bunch. Major League Baseball, Dodgers in the midst of a big-time season, highest payroll in the league, 3 MVPs in the lineup. Can they figure it out? The latest fighting news, a huge MMA fight coming up this weekend for the UFC, and even next season's early NFL futures. I know you guys will be hammering the Rams and Chargers overs on the futures for next season. Head to our website to use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LAFB to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. What is up, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host here. We have a now veteran guest on the Bruin Bible once again, Ben Bolch, making his third appearance. We had to go big this week. UCLA football is starting. Who bigger than Ben Bolch himself, the LA Times writer covering UCLA football. Ben, I got a lot of questions for you, but I want to start with, how was your off season, man? Anything good go on for you this summer?
Well, the question is what off season, right? I mean, the move to the Big Ten. I was actually driving from Raleigh, North Carolina to Arlington, Virginia, and I was literally 20 minutes into the drive when I got a phone call from my coworker, Ryan Karchi, who covers USC for the LA Times, and he said, "Did you hear about this UCLA and SC to the Big Ten?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, so I, like everybody else, I will admit I was completely blindsided, but that ate up, a couple of weeks right there, and a lot of stuff going on with UCLA, and not much of a summer. I did get that East Coast trip in, but it was not quite as relaxing as I'd hoped.
For sure, man. And the Big Ten move was such a shocker to all. And I know you were at Pac-12 Media Day. We were there as well. And just the feel in the room when Kliefkoff took the stage and just how he was, giving the speech to the crowd and everything like that. One of the more awkward rooms you could ever be in your life. It was so strange to see that play out in person. But we have football upon us finally, Ben. Saturday, UCLA Bruins are finally taking the field once again. A lot to be excited about. And I think the conversation that we have, and so many other conversations with UCLA football, has started with the surprising news of Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming back for his 5th year. Ben, you have covered him throughout his entire career, and you probably have gotten to know him in a lot of ways other reporters haven't, because you've been there the entire time. Where is the growth that you've seen from DTR going into his 5th season, as opposed to the freshman who had played, I think, loosely 1 year of high school quarterback before coming in to the Bruins?
Yeah, there's just kind of a calmness and a comfort that I see in him now that I had not seen since he got to UCLA. But interestingly enough, I went to when he played for Las Vegas Bishop Gorman High School. I went and visited with him and had lunch with him his senior year. And in a way, he kind of reminds me of that player. It just in the sense that back then he felt very relaxed and kind of on top of his game and very confident in who he was. And I'm seeing that same guy again now. I think, college was kind of a jarring eye-opener for him when he got there. We've seen the steady progression in his maturity every year, and now he's just taking it to a whole new level. I mean, to me, he acts and carries himself like a pro now, which I think is the goal. And this is, as I wrote in my story on him a few weeks ago, his mom said, if you want to be a pro, you've got to act like a pro, talk like a pro, play like a pro. And I think, starting Saturday, we're going to see that on the field from Dorian. So kudos to him. He's come a long way. I know he's in a really good spot right now and poised for that kind of breakthrough season that I know UCLA fans have been waiting for.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at some of the numbers he could break this year on the UCLA's all-time records list. 2,900 roughly yards away from the UCLA's total offense record, 28 touchdowns shy of the UCLA total touchdowns mark, just a little over 3,000 yards away passing from the all-time passing record, and 14 touches away from breaking Brett Hundley's all-time TD record. This brings the point. Ben, I think there's an opportunity here where if DTR can reach his ceiling, because we've all been infatuated with the natural gifts that he has, the running ability. There's sometimes where you see some of the deep ball passes where you're like, that's a beautiful throw. If he can put it all together this year, I think there's this real strong case he can be a dark horse Heisman candidate, given how the way he was finishing the season last year, finally slayed the dragon that was USC in his career. The Cal game, he picked it up right the next week. And I think if he actually does play in that bowl game that got canceled against NC State, there's a scenario where there's coming around where it goes, hey, DTR is one of the best returning quarterbacks in all of the NCAA. Do you see him potentially having that ceiling as a dark horse Heisman candidate if he puts everything together?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the key there is going to be how UCLA does because, they're going to need to be better than, a 9-3 team for him to have a realistic shot. I mean, they're going to have to at least get to probably, win a Pac-12 title, get to the Rose Bowl, and that would really enhance his chances. But, as you alluded to, the key for him is consistency. He needs to basically take those last 3 games of last season and carry that, repeat that over the course of a full season. And if he does that, man, really no limits on what he can do and where he can take this team.
Love it. DTR coming back, going to have a huge impact on this team moving forward. The other guy that was shocking to come back to as we move to the running back position, Zach Charbonnet. And given the lifespan of the average running back and just what the toll is when 11 guys are trying to kill you on any given play, he decides to come back to UCLA after a really productive season, 1,100 yards on the ground, 13 touchdowns, close to 6 yards a carry. I was shocked probably more by Charbonnet coming back than DTR coming back, especially after Gabriel flipped back to Oklahoma. Zach Charbonnet is another guy that I'm looking at. If he were able to, up the carries a little bit, get closer to that 1,500-yard mark, we could be talking Doak Walker Award with this kid. I mean, what are you seeing with Charbonnet in spring ball that he's back now? Is there any improvements, any new features with him in the offense that makes him look dynamic as he did last year?
Well, he's got one of the most physically imposing bodies on the team. Just looking at his arms, his biceps, he's as chiseled as they come. Technique-wise, I don't know that there's a whole lot he needs to improve on. I think that he's pretty much at the top of his game. As Deshaun Foster, his running backs coach, said, it's just all about kind of fine-tuning little things. But he's the interesting thing this year is, last year he was kind of a timeshare with Britton Brown. This year he's the guy. He's going to be the featured back unquestionably. And then that raises the question of who's going to be his top backup. It looked like it was going to be a battle between Keegan Jones and Deshaun Morrell, but Deshaun Morrell was pretty banged up in training camp. So I'm not sure how far that set him back. Chip Kelly said Keegan Jones was one of the standouts of camp. So that's good news if that's true for UCLA fans, because they clearly need a number 2 to take some of that workload off of Zach Charbonnet, because you do not want him wearing down from overuse, because he's going to be so key to what they do on offense.
Yeah, and Chip Kelly thrives in that 2-back system. That's usually like how he prefers it. And especially with Charbonnet giving the coaching staff the faith of coming back, I don't think they want to wear him out before going to the NFL either. Kind of a mutual, partnership there. As we move to the receiving room, big transfer, Bobo comes in. We've been talking about him all offseason. I think this has a chance to maybe be a top 3 or 4 receiving room in the Pac-12. Kaz Allen, we saw the dynamic ability he was able to display. I think he's going to be arguably the best returner in the Pac-12 this year. It was the receiving that he was able to put together in big moments last year. You see some of the plays he made against Hawaii in the season opener and the catch against LSU and then the USC game. And you're going, why are we not feeding the ball more to Kaz Allen, especially on, some of these reverse plays, things like that, where he was running the football. And then Cam Brown, the Texas A&M transfer. It's his second year now in the system, former SEC talent. He had a big game against Fresno State, was kind of battling some injuries from time to time. I think he's a really talented, potential number 2 option there next to a guy like Bobo. Give me your thoughts on the receiving room, because I think this has a chance to be underrated nationally when it comes to the talent that's there.
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of the highlights right there. I really have been impressed with Jake Bobo. He gives UCLA the kind of big-bodied, 6'4", 6'5"-ish receiver that they haven't had in recent years. Reminds you of like the Stanford prototype guy that you can just throw a ball up to and he can go get it. So that's going to present a new kind of dynamic for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, this offense. But he really hasn't thrown to the outside receivers that much, which raises the question. You got somebody like Jake Bobo, are they going to kind of change the way they run the offense? And even Coach Kelly acknowledged that, yeah, that's a great point. He is such a weapon, and we're going to throw it to him, but we're still going to do it. So he's going to make up for a lot of that Kyle Phillips, Greg Dulcich void that was created. You mentioned some of the other guys that are going to contribute. There was an unfortunate incident at practice a couple of days ago. Titus took a hit in a kickoff drill, and Chip Kelly was actually really upset because he got up slowly and was woozy, and hopefully he came out of that all right. But he was a real standout in spring practice. So they got so many options, and Kaz is really under the radar, and is moving in kind of into that Demetric Felton featured role where he'll get carries and get the ball and, just make an impact all over the field and with kickoff returns as well. So yeah, it is really kind of a promising dynamic group that should make a big impact.
Love to hear it, man. And do you think there's any chance that, let's say, Keegan Jones gets banged up a little bit, that they would move Kaz Allen back to more of a tailback role? Because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he did technically start out as a tailback, if I'm correct.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, it's a possibility. I think he will, get some carries there for sure, regardless. But yeah, I think it's a good point. Some other guys that have been moved over there recently in training camp, Colson Yankoff, the former quarterback turned receiver, now getting, some time at running back, which is interesting. And then even, more recently, freshman tight ends Carson Ryan and Jack Peterson have been working with the running back. So I'm not sure, how much of this is cross training versus like a full-time position shift, but they definitely have increased their depth and given them more possibilities at that position.
Yeah, you might have to clear this up for us, because we saw the headline. These are 2 highly recruited tight ends. We're thinking it's got to be H-back, like that would be their position of like where they got switched to. But when you just see the headline that Jack Peterson and Carson Ryan, like 2 really good tight end recruits, are going to the running back room, you kind of freak out a little bit as a fan of UCLA going, what's going on here? H-back, I'm guessing that's probably the role they'll be suited for.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that, they're going to be a true classic running back type role. I think you hit it right on. I will make a prediction now, and this might lead to me getting banned from future UCLA practices, but Jack Peterson has taken 2 fake punts for running plays in special teams drills. So I'm calling that now. I think we'll probably see that at some point this season.
I love it, man. We'll come back to this too. We can have you on maybe when the season's over, and we can boast about your prediction being right with Peterson taking the punts going the opposite way. Ben, here comes the position group that I'm like probably the most concerned with, and that's the offensive line. The interior of the offensive line has a lot of strengths. I think Mafi, Clemens, Gaines, all experienced starters. I'm not really worried about any of one of those guys particularly. That also includes Marazzo on the line as well. But we lost 2 NFL caliber talents and at the tackle positions in Sean Ryan and Alec Anderson, both going to be very hard to replace. Granted, they got Raekwon O'Neal from Rutgers. Granted, they got Jalen Jeffers from Oregon. How have you seen the offensive line shaping out? Because I read some of the spring practice reports you guys put out. It was very, very dark to begin that period at the offensive line. Sounds like it's shored up a little bit, but what can we expect as UCLA football fans on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think you have a good overview there. It's unfortunate we can't really watch. We got to watch all spring practice, but only get the first 20 minutes in fall camp. And the offensive line is the one position group the farthest away from us. They are literally diagonally on the other field. Way they look like ants basically across the field. So haven't gotten much intel since the end of spring. But to your point about how things were looking up through then, yeah, it was very hit and miss. And there were some days where you're like, oh boy, this could be a problem. But, that was before Raekwon O'Neal reported to campus, the grad transfer from Rutgers. And I think he's really shored up the tackle spot. It looks like Eric DeGiorgio is going to get the start at right tackle. And the Tyler Manoa has had some good moments, the converted defensive lineman. I'm sure he'll probably be the first guy off the bench at that position. And then they've also got Josh Carlin and Jalen Jeffers, as you mentioned. So, they have some depth there. I think that they could probably withstand 1 to 2 guys going down. But I would say if it gets beyond that and they get some really, sustained injuries on offensive line, that could be an area where things really kind of break down and create some problems.
Yeah, I agree. That's the area of concern, I think, for the Bruins moving into 2022. If the line is stable, they can block on run plays. I think they'll be fine, but a lot of new moving parts in there. You mentioned Manoa, a defensive player trying to convert over to the offensive line. That could create some problematic scenarios. Defensive side of the ball, the defensive line, and the Murphy twins are very kind of big name recruits that have switched over from North Texas. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. I think in the Chip Kelly era as a whole, this is the most encouraged I've seen from the defensive line unit as a whole. You have the Murphy twins on opposite edge. Bo Calvert is coming back. He's an experienced veteran within the system. And Mike Regalado, friend of the show, always raves about Carl Jones in practice situations and what he's potentially able to do. Do you think that's a fair sentiment that the defensive line could be as good as we've seen the Chip Kelly era, especially with a new defensive coordinator in there and Bill McGovern?
Well, I certainly think they could be as disruptive as far as getting into the backfield as we've ever seen. But let's give some of the old teams a little bit of credit. They've always been pretty good against the run, even going back to Coach Kelly's first year. They made a massive improvement from where they were in 2017. And they had guys like Otito Ogbonia and some Oso Digizua really kind of holding things down in there, did a great job. So they got some production to replace there. Obviously, Osa's been gone for a while now, but I think that there is potential, especially with the Murphy twins. And I know I'm going to mispronounce his name, but the guy that's the big wild card in all this is Latu, the transfer from Washington, who was basically medically retired, now coming in. And is he going to be able to, kind of from that outside linebacker spot, really, generate a pass rush and kind of be that unexpected X factor that they're looking for? And you mentioned Carl Jones. I got to say, they need to play Carl Jones more. He's such a disruptive force, always seems to be near the ball, making plays. So I think he's a guy, if I was on this coaching staff, I would try to get him on the field as much as possible.
And then Gary Smith, the Duke transfer, Jay Toya was a highly recruited defensive tackle. There's talent in that room. And I think, against the run, I think it really was effective, even under Azanero, who as a defensive coordinator, I think most UCLA fans were ready for him to walk out of Westwood. But I think the difference is I don't think we're going to be sending the same amount of pressure. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You've been closer to the situation than I. But as opposed to sending 6, 7, 8 guys in blitzing situations, they're going to rely more on the front four as in terms of that pass rush under McGovern. Do you see that kind of like as the format that they're going to really go with defensively, or do you think they're going to still send the 6, 7, 8 guys out of the box in a blitzing situation?
Well, I think it's going to be a mix and match situation. I mean, everybody's trying to get McGovern pinned down on what is exactly this defense going to look like. He won't really give answers, but yeah, I think it's going to be more for kind of 4-man fronts as opposed to what we saw under Coach Jerry Azanero. But I think it's going to look pretty similar, and there's going to be a lot of changing up formations and blitzes and things like that, just based on situations. Now, The difference to me is going to be the personnel. I think the personnel is going to be the biggest change, more so than the schemes. But I will be interested to see if it looks fundamentally different than what it was previously, because I think maybe just a little tweak here and there. Obviously, they eliminated the striker position, but I don't think it's going to be some kind of massive makeover change that was completely kind of out of the blue. I mean, Coach Kelly did mention that one of the things that made him attracted to Coach McGovern was that he was bringing NFL pass defensive concepts from his stops with the Bears and the Giants. And obviously they work together as the Eagles. So I think that was the area they were targeting the most with bringing in Coach McGovern was pass defense.
Pass defense. And we could just make a transition quickly to the secondary off that note. Devin Kirkwood, I have very high hopes on. I think this kid could be an absolute star in the secondary, given his height. You know, NFL scouts look at the 6'2", 6'3" corners as kind of the future prototype of the position. Had a very strong, freshman campaign, even though in limited action. Really excited about Kirkwood on the edge. Azizi Hearn, the transfer in from Wyoming, highly graded according to PFF. Just a reliable starter at the Division I level. I think that's very hard to find. And then Jalen Davies. Jalen Davies, an Oregon transfer. This guy was a top 100 recruit by a lot of these, different accounts, the Rivals, 24/7 Sports. And on the back end, you've got just two incredibly veteran-like players in Stephen Blaylock and Mo Osling, two fifth-year seniors. I mean, I just went with the prediction that the defensive line could be potentially the best under Chip Kelly. Is it crazy to say that the secondary, if they reach their ceiling, could be the best under Chip Kelly? Because this was an area of major concern throughout his coaching tenure at UCLA.
I think it could be good. I don't know. I mean, you lose guys like, Quentin Blaylock and some of the other, Jay Shaw, who was a huge impact player. Yeah. I don't know. I see that, it could be good. The best, I don't know. They've had some really quality guys, even going back to Darnay Holmes and some of the other guys who've been there. But I think it could be good. I think that it could be good enough for what they want to do. And that's the most important thing. I think the guy to watch clearly is Kirkwood. He was just making one play after another in the spring when we got to see the team, full live team drills. Live action 7-on-7, and 11-on-11. He was the guy that always seemed to be breaking up passes, catching passes, disrupting whatever the receivers tried to do. So he's a star in the making. I mean, I think he could be an all Pac-12 caliber player this year, and just unlimited potential for him. So, you want to get solid and steady play out of those other guys. I think they're capable of it, but really Kirkwood, the guy is the guy I think is going to draw a lot of eyeballs.
I think so too. Kirkwood, he is my breakout Pac-12 defensive player of the year this year. Linebacking room. This might be arguably the biggest transfer we got in Muwassau. If you're just looking at productivity at the Division I level, back-to-back seasons of over 100+ tackles. And the stat that really impressed me is he's very underrated as a blitzer. He has generated the second most pressures in all of college football at the Division I level over the past 2 seasons. So you combine that with what he's able to do as just kind of the leader of the defense making play calls. He's also blitzing, making impacts. 5 forced fumbles last year, 7 sacks. Muwassau, how has he looked in spring? And I know the other guy next to him, John Vaughns, has been great with new linebacking coach, Ken Norton Jr., legend at UCLA.
Yeah, they've been very impressive. Muwassau just looks the part. He just looks like a really high impact, high end college linebacker, and he's really, to me, I mean, if I think about, obviously they've had concerns in the secondary over the years, but the middle of the field to me has been kind of a real problem area for UCLA in recent years, and I think that he's really going to shore that up and make that kind of a no man's land for opposing offenses and really create problems. And as you said, he's also going to get in the backfield a lot. So I think he's going to just make a huge impact. To me, he actually is the most essential player on this defense to me. I think that if you said who's the guy that's going to make the biggest impact that you just could not afford to lose, it's Darius Muwassau.
I am so excited to see him play on this Saturday coming up. 2 more questions for you, Ben, before I let you go. Give me a player on offense and defense that maybe the public is not as familiar with that you think could make a direct impact this year for the UCLA Bruins.
Well, I mean, take your pick with the tight ends because they're all basically brand new. Hudson Habermill is really impressive. Even going down to the list to guys like Michael Churich and David Preby, you got a lot of guys to choose from there. And the thing that stands out to me is they all look kind of interchangeable. And in some cases that means that nobody's making a real impression. But to me, it's like, no, you've got, multiple guys who are just kind of studs at this position who really can catch passes and have the body size to be really good blockers as well. So I'm going to go with, the whole tight end group is going to be kind of a breakout group because they honestly have not done much. They haven't had much of a chance. So there'll be probably multiple names at that position that were going to be breakthroughs. And then defensively, I mentioned him earlier, but I'm going to go with Latu, probably badly mispronouncing that. But he's, I just like what I've seen from him in the limited time we've been able to see practice. He's got a great body. He moves quickly, very physical player. Fully cleared now. He basically, his career was thought to be over. And I think that he feels like he's got a lot more football in him. And from the way he plays, he's got that edge to him and that chip that he really wants to show people, hey, I'm not just back playing, but I'm, kicking butt and taking names, and I'm going to be a real force out here. So I think you'll be hearing that name quite a bit. And hopefully when you hear it, they'll say it correctly.
I love it, man. The last thing we got for you, 12-game slates, not including a bowl game. Ben, if you had to give a prediction, gut feeling right now, you're going to the table at Vegas. You got to make a bet on what UCLA is going to win this year. What are you going with, Ben?
Well, I'm trying to remember what I said last year on this show. I think I went 9-3. I wish we could roll that tape back. I think I said 9-3, and I was pretty close. This year, I'm even more bullish. It's funny. A lot of people think I hate UCLA because Chip and I often go head to head in the interviews. But I have a lot of respect for a lot of the elements of what's happening over there, and I think they're going to be very good this year. I think the three games that are the key games are obviously Oregon, Utah, and SC. The way I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, the way I think this season plays out, I think they actually win 2 of those 3 games. But the flip side is they're going to have an unexpected loss. So I think that my prediction is they'll beat Oregon and SC and lose to Utah, but they'll drop an unexpected game with the top candidates there being the Trap Cal game Thanksgiving week, the road game against Arizona State, or the home game against Washington. I think they'll probably possibly drop one of those 3. So my prediction's 10-2, get to the Pac-12 title game. I won't go beyond that, but I think I think every UCLA fan would be very happy if that played out that way.
Well, Ben, you're making me happy just with that prediction. That was awesome, dude. We'll take 2 wins over Oregon and SC all day. Ben Bolch, you guys can catch all of his work at the LA Times. In fact, he did an awesome Twitter space today with Thomas Cole's family, the former UCLA offensive lineman that has been suffering from mental health issues. Thomas, you're in our prayers. He did also with the Ole Miss sports psychologist, Dr. Josie Nicholson, a great space to check. Ben, any other articles? I read the articles, obviously, on Neo Mafi, and some of the other dudes around there. Any other articles you got to plug, man?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I actually have a profile on Bill McGovern coming out tomorrow morning because that's the big question about this team, right? What's this defense going to look like? I don't know that I provide all the answers, but I certainly feel like I got a lot of insight into the man Coach McGovern is. I talked to Mark Herzlich, who was a star with the Eagles, BC Eagles, under Coach McGovern, more than a decade ago, and he gave me some great anecdotes about the way he coaches. So please look forward to that and read that story.
Check it all out at LA Times. Ben, my friend, great to see you as always. College football season is here. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
All right. Appreciate you so much.
Awesome. Bruin Bible. We are